I know this July 1st marked the 104th anniversary of the founding of the Communist Party of the China CPC. Ahead of this centennial celebration, CPC leader Xi Jinping has called on the Chinese people to study party history well and avoid nihilism. However, this party history from the CPC's very inception has been filled with the concealment and the distortion of the historical truth. One such obscure fact is the CPC's own birthday. The first National Congress, which the party designates as its founding moment, actually convenes on the July 23rd, 1921, not July 1st. Here, the Voice of America exposes major historical events that the 2021 editions of A Brief History of the Communist Party of China. The brief history conceal or distort, including June 1st, 1989, the Cultural Revolution, the Anti-Rightist Campaign, the Great Famine, the Korean War, the War of Resistance against Japan, and the Long March. Over the 40 years of China's reform and opening up, some of those events have been re-elevated, while others remain cloaked in lies, and some may yet be revealed in falsehoods. For the bloody suppressions on June 4, 1989, and the 50-day student protests that preceded the brief history referred to it as a political disturbance. It describes the democracy movement, which later saw near universal participation as an activity instigated by a tiny minority to oppose the leadership of the Communist Party and the socialist system. Regarding the massacre on the June 4th, the brief history states the political bureau of the Central Committee, with the support of Deng Xiaoping and other veterans revolutionaries, relies on the people and took decisive measure on June 4 to swiftly cause the counter-revolutionary riots in Beijing. What the brief history omits is those decisive measures involved ordering the People's Army to deploy tank and machine gun against unarmed students and citizens, causing several casualties and shattering hundreds, if not thousands of tens of thousands of Chinese family now outside the China as the Tiananmen Massacre. The Chinese government has never acknowledged its crimes, offered compensation, or ceased its efforts to suppress the truth and force victims and survivors to erase this history from the memory. 32 years ago tonight, the CPC turned the People's Army against the people. 32 years later, those connected to June 4th still face repression. On the Chinese mainland, collective commemorations for June 4th have all but disappeared, and even private mourning by the victims' families is subject to surveillance and interference by the authorities. In Hong Kong, once the only place in China where public virgins for June 4th victims were held for 30 years, such a gathering has been banned for 2 consecutive years. Recently, Hong Kong authorities forced the closure of the June 4th Memorial Museum for operating without a license. The night, the CPC unleashed machine guns and tanks to slaughter its people. Since its founding, the Communist Party has claimed that it always placed the people on its banner, describing the bond between the party and the Chinese people as like a fish and water, or flesh and blood, and the army as a people's army. Yet, starting late on June 3rd and into the early hour of the June 4th, 1989, the CPC ordered its troops to turn their weapon on defenseless citizens and students. Hundreds, if not thousands, fall under the guns of this people's army. At around 10 p.m. on June 3rd, the CPC issued an emergency notice announcing that the martial law troops would forcibly clear the area, stating if obstructed, the troops may take all necessary self-defense measures and any means to remove resistance. From 10 p.m. on the June 3rd to the early hours of June 4th, heavily armed soldiers, backed by tanks and armed vehicles, clashed with unarmed students and citizens at approximately 190 locations across Beijing. According to Wu Renhua, a restorations of participant and eyewitness of the 1989 democracy movement, the CPC mobilized 19 military unions, totaling nearly 200,000 troops to enforce martial law in Beijing. Those included 14 army groups, such as the 13th Army, the 15th Airborne Corps, and the Tank Division from the Tianjin Oceans, who personally witnessed the violent clearing of Tiananmen Square, saw Chinese soldiers use tanks to kill people on the streets. In a 2019 Voice of America interview, Wu recounted, at around 6 a.m. on June 4, I withdrew with about 3,000 classmates to Liubukou on West Changshan Avenue. As we walked along the roadside, 3 tanks from the Tianjin Groceries 1st Division fired military tear gas, causing a 19-year-old Beijing business college student, Guang Zhifang, to die from the respiratory damage after inhaling excessive gas. At that spot, a tank numbered 106 charged into the student group from the behind, killing 11 students instantly and injuring many more. Wu's traumatic experience drove him to become a historian dedicated to uncovering the truth about the June 4th. He has since authored 3 books: The Bloody Cleaning of the Tiananmen Square, The Martial Art Troops of the June 4th Incident, and A Complete Recall of the June 4th Incident. Fang Zheng, a senior at Beijing Sport University in 1989, was among the injured in the Liubukou incident. Wu described it. His leg was crushed by tank. Found to a Voice of America that as he retreated from the Tiananmen Square with other students along West Chang and Avenue, amid smoke from the explosion, a tank charged forward. He pushed a fainting female classmate toward a roadside railing but couldn't escape in time. I pushed her forward, but under the tank's overwhelming pressure, I fall. Fang recorded, I felt myself being crushed, dragged along the ground, bouncing and then dropped. The CPC has constantly downplayed the violence, emphasizing that no one died within Tiananmen Square itself. Yet deaths still occur in the square, and many more perish outside it, particularly at Mu Shidi Xidan intersection, Tianqiao south of the square, Zhu Siquan Qingming, and Lan Cizi on East Chang'an Avenue, where bloodshed was heaviest. A June 4 1989, broadcast from the Beijing International Radios at 6:25 a.m. reported police remember June 3rd, 1989, a day when the most horrifying tragedy unfolded in China capital. Thousands of civilians, mostly innocent, were killed by fully armed soldiers forcibly entering the city. Among the victims were our collegians at this station. Soldiers fired machine guns from tanks at countless citizens, and students trying to block their paths, continuing to shoot indiscriminately even after clearing a road. Eyewitnesses say that some armed vehicle even crushed hesitant a soldier who back at the confronting the resistant crowds. The reporter concluded, "We mourn the victims of this tragedy and call on our listeners to join us in condemning this shameless violation of human rights and the barbaric suppressions of the people." The 82nd report, believed to be the only official Chinese broadcast denouncing the CPC's actions, led to its authors of a 4-year imprisonment. The Tiananmen Mothers, a group of the mothers of June 4th victims, documented 202 deaths by the 30th anniversary. The youngest victims were 9 years old. The oldest was 66. They included elementary, middle, and college students, workers, drivers, engineers, cooks, musicians, veterans, and officer workers. One daughter was killed en route to visit her recent widowed mother. A student was shot point blank by an officer while meditating between soldiers and civilians. Others died rescuing the wounded or taking photos. How many died on the June 4th? The CPC has never released an official list of casualties or compensation figures. A July 10, 1990 report from the Ministry of Public Security to the State Council claimed that 931 deaths and over 22,000 injuries nationwide, with 523 deaths in Beijing, 57 Beijing students, 45 Beijing residents, 171 out-of-town students, 229 workers and farmers, and 21 unidentified. However, those figures conflict with other estimates. The Beijing Red Cross reported approximately 2,600 deaths and 30,000 injured. Declassified British and U.S. documents suggest over 10,000 deaths. Wu Renhua, after reviewing hospital and troop route data, believes the Red Cross figure is the most credible. Dan Southland, then Washington Post bureau chief in Beijing, visited the Tiananmen Square and the hospital post-massacre in 1989. "I went to a hospital and demanded entry," he told Voice of America in 2014. "A brave doctor let me in despite orders to keep foreigners out. I saw bodies stacked there, not students but older Beijing citizens. Most of the dead were workers and residents, not students." In 2004, military doctor Zhang Yanyong, who gained fame for exposing SARS in 2003, wrote to China's National People's Congress and Politburo, revealing that Beijing's 301 hospital received 89 gunshot victims between 10 p.m. and midnight on the June 3rd, 7 of whom died. He noted many were hit by the international banned dum-dum bullets. In the CPC's narrative, the 1989 student movement was a counter revolutionary riot, with riders attacking soldiers, forcing materialized troops to retaliate. Wu Renhua, after studying post-June 4 CPC propaganda about Republican guards, called "This is a lie" of 15 martial law troops deaths. Only 7 resulted from the civilian violence, he said. Official records show no soldier death before 1 a.m. on the June 4, but troops began shooting at 10 p.m. on June 3. The first civilian death I documented was Sang Xiaoming, shot at Wu Kesang intersection around 10 p.m. The protest students and civilians alike did not oppose the party. They loved their country. The brief history called it a planned, organized anti-party, anti-socialist political turmoil. In reality, most of protesters, especially students, did not aim to overthrow the CPC or socialism. They sought reform. Student leader Wang Dan wrote in 2010, the 1989 movement never proposed replacing the Communist Party or taking power ourselves. Another leader, Wu Kaixi, told Voice of America in 2014 that students aimed to pressure the CPC into positive choice. All mass movements worldwide follow the same logic, apply pressure to force a response, he said. Our demands were peaceful, rational, and not violent, leaving the government ample room at every step. Throughout the 1980s, despite internal struggles between the reformers and the conservatives within the CPC, China emerged from the Cultural Revolution's decades of repression with an atmosphere of natural vitality and open discussion. Socially conscious university students hold annual March terms students unrest by the CPC starting in 1979 before June 4th. The largest such event occurred in May 1986 when students in the Anhui launched a mass protest for democratic elections and against corruption, spreading to Shanghai, Beijing, and beyond. The CPC labeled it a wave of liberalization aimed at legating socialism. James Manner, then Los Angeles Times Beijing's bureau chief, told Voice of America in 2020 that students were patriotic idealists who wanted a better country and limit on the CPC power. The idealism of the 1980s was about setting new boundaries on the communist authority, seen as a patriotism. He said they will embrace the Western democracy in the natural sense. Reformist CPC leader Hu Yaobang and Zhang Ziyang also never framed democracy in terms of elections. Hu Yaobang was forced to resign in January 1987 for allegedly supporting those liberalization. His death on the April 15, 1989 sparked student mourning and protests starting April 17, widely regarded as the beginning of the Tiananmen democracy movement. And noted June 4th was primarily about opposing the corruption, and the CPC's action at the time, demands for freedom and democracy were vague. The goddess of democracy statue in the Tiananmen Square wasn't there until May 30, late in the protest. On April 17, 1989, Peking University students issued a 7-point petition with no trace of anti-party or anti-socialism intent that demanded of reassessment of Hu Yaobang, rejection of a campaign against spiritual pollution, and bogus liberalization, transparency of leaders' incomes, press freedoms, and a public apology for government mistakes. After the CPC's People's Daily published an editorial on April 26, labeling the protest anti-party symbol, over 100,000 Beijing students marched on April 27, displaying slogan like a peaceful petition, not the turmoil, done with the bureaucrats, support the Communist Party, support socialism, and uphold the Constitution. On the May 13th, students began a hunger strike with 2 demands: substantive dialogue with the government and an official recognition of the movement as a patriotic democratic effort. On the May 4th, CPC General Secretary Zhao Ziyang told Asian Development Bank delegates, the students are opposing our fundamental system that want us to fix flaws in our work. His sympathies for the students and oppositions to martial law angered Deng Xiaoping. The CPC de facto leaders after June 4th, Zhao was stripped of all posts and placed under house arrest. Neri was a U.S. Embassy assistant army attached in the 1989, offered another perspective. On June 2nd, he investigated villages northwest of Beijing, blocking military vehicle to prevent troops from entering the city, expecting the support from the villagers opposing the army. He was surprised when they sided with the soldier, demanding he surrender his film. They said, "If you harming China's security, we want you to leave and give the film to the officer." As he said, the people stand with the students from the start to finish. The brief history claims, at a critical moment for the party and the national survival, the pro-labor backed by the Deng Xiaoping and other veteran revolutionists relied on the people to resolute opposed to the turmoil, taking this safe measure on the June 4 to cross the counter-revolutionary roads in the Beijing. In truth, the people did not support the CPC's crackdown. They sympathized with and stand alongside the students. The 50-day protest, initially student-led, grew into a nationwide movement with support from teachers, intellectuals, journalists, workers, and ordinary citizens. On April 23, 1989, Beijing's Science and Technology Daily highlighted that the student actions represent the voice of billions of people. As the protests unfold, taxi drivers offer free rides, train carry students to Beijing, and citizens form human chains to shield students from the armed vehicle. During the April 27 march, over 100,000 students broke through police and military lines, cheered by the millions of Beijing residents lining the street. When students began a hunger strike on the May 13th, and the images of their plight arrived on TV, the movement became a near universal cause. Hospitals, including military ones, organized the rescue. Citizens, government, workers, unions, and even armed police joined in support. On May 16, hundreds of thousands of marched in Beijing, with over 200,000 students arriving from across China. Protests of 5,000 or more erupted in the 21 cities, including Shanghai and Xi'an. That day, 1,000 intellectuals, including writers Ba Jing and Po Yiqing, signed a May 16 declaration backing the student and criticizing the CPC's turmoil labor. The brief history claims that June 4th promoted the CPC to calmly reflect on the past, present, and future. This reflection excludes truth, accountability, or composition. Instead, the CPC has erased June 4th from the public memory, censoring it online, harassing victims' family, and banning commemorations in Hong Kong and Macau. Today, China used not little of the bloody crackdown 36 years ago. The reflection also enters one-party rules and hostility to democracy and universal value. June 4th held China's democratic transition, making protests and political reform untouchable right line. The CPC tightened control over media and public discourse. Historian Gao Wenqiang told Voice of America in 2019 that June 4th left two legacies: a violent stability, governance models, and a bottom-line mindset to crush dissent early. Under Xi Jinping, this approach has intensified. Hong Kong's national security law has curtailed freedoms, jailing activism like Zhu Shihua Wang for June 4th Uyghur in Xinjiang. Millions of Uyghur face detention. In Taipei, cultural and religious suppression still exists. So that's what I want to tell you about today. Never forget about what happened in June 4th. Thank you so much.